Hi everyone, here's what's bothering me today. Remember however long ago it was at this point, when I talked about the looming eviction crisis in the States and how bad it would be? Well, unfortunately, it's even worse than we thought. There was recently a New York Times article, which, again, if you can't read or get around the paywall, there's a 12-foot ladder on the internet for that, wink, wink. And the article in question, which again, I will link down below for people, but I'm also going to share some screenshots from another fellow Twitter user that kind of hits on the highlights of the problem here. The bullet points, as it were, of this is the fact that eviction numbers seem to be 3 times higher than reported. Higher rent prices are incentivizing landlords to evict faster. And yeah, that's kind of what happened to us and why we had to move here. Most evictions are not due to formal proceedings, and rental assistance is being held up and red taped because of course it is. So again, let's just really quickly hit the bullet points of the article. It is not the sudden surge of evictions that tenants and advocates feared. What's emerging is a more gradual eviction crisis that is increasingly hitting communities across the country, where the distribution of federal rental assistance has been slow and where tenants have few protections. For months, we all used terms like eviction tsunami and falling off the cliff, but those simple terms miss the complexity of the eviction process and the lack of reliable statistics to track it. The available numbers dramatically undercount the number of tenants being forced from their homes, either through court-ordered evictions or informal ones, especially as rising rents make seeking new tenants increasingly profitable for landlords. And yeah, that's what happened. The old apartment we were at was sold because we can fix it up and flip it, and since you've been here a while because you're good tenants, by doing this it's a rent eviction, so you gotta leave, and then we can just lightly touch up the place and sell it for its actual market value right now. And this touches on a point I'm gonna hit very soon, because there's a couple other angles to this story, and it sort of ties into another story from San Francisco that absolutely infuriated me this morning. But right now I still want to focus on how this problem is actually much worse than we realize and much bigger than we realize, precisely because there's no real way to realistically track it. There is no national database of evictions. 1/3 of all US counties have no available court eviction data at all. And most tenants are forced to leave their rental units not because of formal eviction proceedings, but because they've been illegally locked out, or their utilities have been shut off, or because they want to avoid an eviction being added to their record by leaving on their own. A 2015 study from Milwaukee found there were 2 of these so-called informal evictions for every 1 formal eviction. And a recent survey of low-income tenants in Washington state found that 1 in 5 tenants were subjected to a method of informal eviction during the pandemic. So this is a classic case of an epidemic happening, but it's just been so completely unnoticed statistically because there's no way to statistically track it due to a variety of social, artificially constructed pressures. There's a lady in the article by the name of Miss Cobb, and we're going to talk about her story for a hot second. Miss Cobb has been staying with a friend in Ohio and searching for a place in St. Louis that she can afford, but after months of looking, she hasn't yet found an apartment that she qualifies for with the income she makes from Instacart deliveries. Eviction is just one piece of a much larger problem. It is the access to available housing. Rental assistance was not designed for tenants. Rental assistance was designed to stabilize an industry. Without increased protections for renters and interventions in the exploding rental market, tenants will continue to be displaced. And yeah, that is a very real problem that is happening here right now. We have too many people who already can't afford a house, and now the rental market is, in order to satisfy the terrible landlords that operate within it, you are now seeing a system where people are being evicted for usually very dubious reasons, so that then the owners, the actual landlords, can turn around and just immediately jack up the rent. And so rental prices in many places, not just in America, but here in Canada, Britain, Australia, etc., many people now who, again, we can't afford homes, and now even renting places are becoming unaffordable because of house flipping and tenant flipping, so that they can, look at how much money the market will sustain. So we can't afford to buy places, and now we can't afford to rent places. Gee, I wonder if maybe that little prediction I made about how we're going to see this become a real problem and the homelessness crisis is going to explode. And maybe the fact that cities like Los Angeles and other terrible places have made it so that homelessness, like to be homelessness, is now a criminal act that allows police to brutalize you. Maybe this is all a recipe for a huge fucking disaster. And unfortunately, we are seeing this in Van Ness in San Francisco. Yeah, I saw this following video that we're going to share earlier this morning, and just pay attention to how the media constructs the story and who the people they show as victims respond to the situation.
It's a street residents say they're afraid to drive through, and most wouldn't dare walk through it day or night.
It's pretty consistently nerve-wracking. This is just seems to be a safe space for chop shops, drug trafficking. The garbage, first of all, is like that's a huge health concern. Rats.
And it's all within feet of the Artani, a modern condominium on Van Ness where units have sold for more than $1 million.
What would you say is the most egregious part of that alleyway?
Probably the threats of violence. The threats of violence to us, other residents in the building.
I've seen people physically fighting, and I myself was leaving once and a man approached my car yelling obscenities and threatening me, which was really scary.
There was a guy who passed out in front of our door with a needle hanging out of his arm all day long, and our children had to walk past that.
Artani residents say they're confronted with unwanted activity as soon as they exit the garage. They shared photos of a man they say regularly urinates. The smell permeates the entire garage. They say another tries to break into their garage. Others are captured damaging their property, even trespassing and stealing packages.
I can't really reconcile just the fact that this criminal activity is allowed to happen. And, you know, I myself have called the cops a number of times.
As recently as October 5th, the city came and did a complete sweep of the street, seen here in this photo. But by the next day, the tents and the trash had returned.
The police don't actually come when we call 911 because we're actively being threatened by somebody who's wielding a club or a knife. They don't come.
San Francisco police directed our inquiry to the Healthy Streets Operations Center, which coordinates the city's response to quality of life issues. The Department of Emergency Management says city teams visited Willow Street on 24 different days this year and placed more than 150 people in navigation centers, hospitals, or shelters.
So the media makes it so that these poor rich people in this super expensive condo where units go for $1 million a piece are like, the cops don't come here and like get rid of the homeless people, except for that one time they show and talk about where the cops cleared the entire encampment and literally less than 24 hours it was back. Now again, before some people start saying, oh, you're out to lunch, did you not actually pay attention? Yes. It would be remiss of me not to talk about the fact that it is perhaps problematic that a homeless dude is getting high on like heroin or something with a needle still in his arm, and a woman and her kids have to walk by that every day. However, the solution to that is not the brutalization of people. That is instead a very clear and visceral reminder of, oh, geez, we're living in this super expensive, like I paid over $1 million for an 800 square foot condo. And when I leave the parking garage every day, I am confronted with some of the most brutal poverty that America has ever seen. Maybe there's a metaphor here. And maybe the actual solution is, instead of brutalizing these people, housing them and taking care of them. In terms of either, in the instance of the homeless guy with the needle in his arm, maybe, I don't know, get him the help he needs. Get housing to these people. Get mental health and substance supports for these people. Maybe that would be a far more acceptable and also affordable solution than bringing in the cops. Yet again, cops who, again, need I remind you, are all bastards, by the way, and bring them in to clear these people out, only for them to show up 24 hours later. Great use of taxpayer dollars, by the way. The solution here is not to demonize these people, the poorest among us. The solution is to help them. But even the media and these people living in $1 million ivory towers right next door can't see that. And that is only part of the massive problem of all the evictions that are happening and all the enabling of police brutality against the homeless as we've seen in the past. This is a recipe for disaster. It's not getting any better. It's only going to get worse. And unfortunately, we can't even track it, which means the hopes of government action on it are even lower. And if you can't tell, all these factors are absolutely what's bothering me today.